What grade is this?
That's good. Excuse me, mother. So I want you all to raise your hand if you think that the United States is a developed nation.
Developed?
Developed. Okay.
Overdeveloped.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm gonna provide you with some statistics that might startle you a bit. So in 2015, the UN released 17 goals for what they think developed countries should have achieved. Now, among these goals are poverty, health, crime, obesity, things like that. Now, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development did some research on how the United States fares when looking at these goals. Now, we're comparing ourselves to other developed countries, keep in mind. So, first I'm going to talk about poverty rate. Amongst these developed countries, we're second, with the second highest poverty rate at 23.1%. And then for blacks, it's 36%, and then for Hispanics, it's 31%. Now, health. We pay the highest in health per capita amongst any developed country at just over $9,400 per person. That's $17 ahead of $1,700 ahead of Luxembourg, the next closest country. But we still have relatively poor health when compared to other developed countries, and we have a very high obesity rate. We are the only advanced economy that does not have health care for all of its citizens. Child mortality and life expectancy. We have one of the highest child mortality rates amongst developed countries at 600 deaths per 100,000 people. And we have the lowest life expectancy at 78.8 years. And we're about 2 years behind the next closest country. Now, education. We're among the top 5 spenders in education per student from kindergarten all the way to high school at around, say, $11,000. And yet, according to our PISA test scores, we're very middle of the pack. We're 24th in science and reading and 26th in math. And then lastly, voter turnout. As you can see by the last election, it's not that good. So, amongst democratic institutions, our voter turnout is 67%. It's the lowest that you can get in the rankings. And then Australia is first with 93% because they have laws in place where if you don't vote, you get fined. And we are one of the few countries where eligible citizens are not required to vote. They're not registered automatically to vote. All right. So I'm going to talk about how my idea of development has changed on this trip from before I came on the trip and then where I'm at right now. So before, I was kind of, the typical American mindset about development. I was like, oh, let's just donate money to starving children in Africa and somehow things will get better. I quickly realized, well, actually not that quickly, but I realized that that's not the case, and development doesn't work like that. See, when you donate money, oftentimes the money never makes it to the child at all. It's often funneled, and sometimes corrupt government leaders will take it, and anything can happen to it, but oftentimes it does not get to the child. Now, that's what I thought about development. I thought, donate money, it will help. Infrastructure will start popping up, healthcare will start popping up, education rates will go up in Africa, things like that. But that's not the case. It doesn't happen like that. Now, our first country, South Africa, was where we studied healthcare. And I figured since we've donated billions and billions of dollars to Africa over the past 15, 60 years, that the healthcare system would be, pretty good. Not U.S. standard, but good enough. Quickly found out that was a false assumption, and that the disparity between healthcare between blacks and whites is alarmingly large. It's very depressing to see. Now, our work in South Africa was focused on healthcare, as I said, and we would follow different healthcare workers around different houses in the community. and visit patients and take blood tests and administer pills, things like that. I did not feel I was making a difference when I was in South Africa because I was often just sitting there while my healthcare workers spoke Afrikaans to the patients. First few days, I didn't do anything. I just walked around with her, followed her, talked with Saoirse about things not related to healthcare, and I felt indisposable. Like, what am I doing here? Why am I here? And then I did get a little heads up from Chris, that one of my program leaders, that we're not here to develop these countries. We're here to learn. But still, I didn't feel I was doing anything that was actually helping my work. And then on to India. In India, we studied education, and in Dharamshala, we stayed there for 4 weeks, and we taught preschoolers things like how to count, colors, the values of sharing, and all that fun stuff. But they didn't even speak our language. So again, I often felt disposable when I was teaching these kids. Oftentimes they weren't even paying attention, and every time they'd run out the room, I'd be like, why do I have to do this? And so that's just my idea of development that I had previously was only further enhanced through the first two experiences that in these two different countries. And so next we go to Ecuador. This is where things changed for me in big time. In Rio Valma, not so much, because we were only meeting for 2 weeks in a row. That wasn't too exciting nor fun, but life goes on. So we were in Cabuyal is where my idea of development was just, my old idea was just shattered. It was destroyed there. Because in Cabuyal, we were working with the local community. We were staying in the local community. It was only about 50 to 100 people that stayed in this community. And this is where I felt that our group had the most impact, by far. Because we were, like I said, we're living in this community, we're working in the exact same community, and we're doing something that the community actually wants, something that they need, and that was planting trees. Planted about 3,000 trees in 4 weeks. Pretty impressive, in my opinion. Anyway, that's when it happened. I'm just like, wow, we're really making a difference here. I feel like we're really helping this community, and the local government is supporting us. They have workers that would come work with us and help us in what we're doing. That's when I realized that development needs to be a more grassroots idea, more community-based idea, not just USA giving money to a development corporation and telling them to build a hospital in some small village in Africa. Development needs to be what the community wants. Don't give the community something that they can't work with, like a new hospital. They already have a hospital. Build something that they want, get their opinions, focus on them. Don't focus on helping in some hidden way. Now, sorry, lost my place. But after Cabuyal, I came back and we visited all these local organizations, such as IDEX, USAID, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, United Nations Foundation, etc. Their ideas of development were just almost sickening to hear, because they still believe in this idea of donating money, donating mosquito nets, donating food, somehow is helping. And it's just irritating to see experts that have been working in this field for 30 and 40 years say these things when it's still very clearly not working. So I'm going to end the presentation with the question that I want you all to think about for a bit. And that question is, what defines development? What should development look like? Not just in the US, but in Africa and other third world countries. Thank you. Questions? Gigs, companies? Yes.
So how do we change it?
Well, been thinking about that a lot actually, and I'll be going to college this fall, and it'll be fun to enlighten some of the college students who have this old idea. So that'll be one way, and then joining local groups that help lobby or things like that for Congress is definitely another way to change our mindsets. But I guess ultimately proving that this older way of development doesn't work is probably the most important thing. Yes.
Did doing the Thinking Beyond Borders program change your perspective on what you wanted to pursue in college?
It did, but not drastically.
Okay.
I was originally thinking I was between psychology and international studies of some kind, and this trip only just made me lean towards international studies more than psychology. Yes.
So you, I mean, it seems to me your observation was that development aid, I mean, it really has to start at the grassroots level,
Yes.
with people on the ground collecting information and identifying what the people want.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think, are these other groups that you mentioned, are they sort of missing that, or they don't have the resources for it, or they can't? Where are they dropped? Where are they failing in that perspective?
I think, well, from what I know, most of the organizations we've met with, such as USAID and the United Nations Foundation, would put people on the ground. But the thing is, they're not asking what the community wants. They're going in there with this, like Sarah said in her presentation, this preconceived notion of what should be happening.
Uh-huh.
But they're not getting. Community might not want what they're building, or it just might not be needed. And so I think that we need to focus on what they want more than our own assumptions.
Do you think they're sort of going in with a preconceived notion of, hey, this worked in America or Europe, and it'll work in South America or India or Africa? Is that, are they trying to make it like Main Street USA or?
I think just observing. It's a good question, actually. I think just observing, what the issues are there or the issues that they have are, and just not getting localized ideas. They're getting U.S. ideas about what it should be, like you said. Not necessarily Main Street USA, but something I wouldn't say as complicated. Yes.
In defense of things like Peace Corps,
Mhm.
where they go into the village, they learn the language, they live with the people, they are invited by the village based on the needs that the village says this is what we need you to work on. So which is a very grassroots approach, 2 to 3 years. That, in my opinion, is a good way of coming in and working alongside, working yourself out of a job. So in defense of that, I don't think they're all bad. And Médecins Sans Frontières, without them, Doctors Without Borders in these war and crisis zones, working alongside locals, I don't think it's all bad. So I'm kind of throwing in a different perspective than that.
I absolutely agree with you. Peace Corps is definitely doing the right thing, in my opinion. They're, like you said, they're putting people on the ground and they're getting ideas of what the community actually wants, and not just some statistic that says, oh, we should do this. So I have to agree with you on that. It's definitely.
So as I understand your point is that throwing money at a problem or a perceived problem isn't enough. It's looking at other sources of capital, specifically human capital, but also understanding and listening to the needs of the people on the ground who would be the recipients of that type of fund, whether it's money or dollars. And with respect to the Peace Corps and Doctors Without Borders, both of those organizations do a lot with regard to human capital. Both could probably do a lot more if they were beneficiaries of some of those dollar investments.
That's very true. Is there a question in there?
Well, I'm just saying,
No.
is that your point?
Is that my point? Yes. I'm shift away from this idea of just throwing more at these companies that will go in and develop these little poverty places of poverty, I guess. Maybe giving more of this aid money to these corporations like Doctors Without Borders will help, because it's getting down to the local. Eventually, it'll be down to the local community, and that's what really matters. Yes.
You left us with a really tough question, so I'm gonna ask it back to you.
Oh.
But I'm not expecting a fully developed answer. But what do you think? What factors do you think we look at with development for countries?
No, I've been asked that question countless times on the trip, and I just honestly still don't know. It's such a vast idea. There's so much to talk about. And another thing I didn't mention is that there's never ever going to be a fully developed nation. It's never ever going to be possible. No way. Every country has its own problems. There's not going to be a utopia in this shape of the world. So development is a never-ending process. But to get back to your question, if I can somehow, honestly, I don't know, because there's just so much to talk about, and I haven't even scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Great question. Yes.
And to piggyback on Patty's question, I think, I think that the reason why you've been able to transform your notion of what development is because you've been asking questions like this throughout the trip. So I'm curious, as you go into college and if you do pursue international relations as your field of study, what are the big questions that you are going to continue to ask about how development should look?
This is a tough one.
You knew I would.
Yeah, I knew you would. I expected nothing less. I'd have to say, how can we change our policies on development? That's probably the biggest question I have to ask, because that can go all the way down to doing that can have major effects down the line for local communities, up to them more. But that's probably my biggest question. And then how do we spread this idea of development that is completely out of line with what people think development really is? How do we share this idea? There's ways to do it, but what's the most effective way is probably what I'm asking. So those are probably my two biggest questions about this. Yes.
I have a light, fluffy question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm Amanda's mom, by the way, so I'm delighted to meet you. I just wanted to say, as you embark upon your international studies program, I'm assuming you're going to be traveling, and out of the countries that you visited, did you resonate with one in particular?
Great question. Very lighthearted, I like that. I would have to say, in terms of the culture, Cambodia. We were only there for a week, but a week was enough for me to just really enjoy my time there. And the place where I felt the most relaxed, I'll just say. I really enjoyed the culture there. It's very laid back, which I love. Not very intense like Washington D.C. is. And just the people there are incredibly nice. Well, it does have issues. I'm not gonna lie, it does have some issues, but I have to say Cambodia.
Any last questions? Thank you, Dmitri.